Ciao, bonjour, and good afternoon. Great to see so many familiar faces in the room. Lots of you joined us in LA back in August last year for Marketplace, and many of you braved the cold in December over in UK and Europe. I'm going to give you a little insight into the Western markets and what it's like on the ground at the moment and what we see for the future. Since we were here last year, we have a few new faces in the team. We have Sarah Thompson, who some of you may know from the Brisbane office. She made the move over to London to cover the trade and marketing role. She's actually currently on an Emirates flight into Brisbane with 7 UK travel agents hosting a famil, which is exciting. And we also expanded the Americas team with Kelly Miller joining Laura over in the US. We have Steffi and Laura here in the room today over there. So, we'll start with the economic outlook, the cost of living. If any of you were here last year, I know there was a few audible gasps when I was talking about my gas and electricity bills, so I thought I'd fill you in on how we're going with that. Well, I looked at my January monthly bill, and it was coming in at over $500. So although that's an improvement on last year, it's still not an ideal situation. Interest rates are still high across the markets, and the geopolitical instability in Europe with the addition of the Israel and Palestine troubles is causing a very real and near uncertainty. And there's even mention of introducing military conscription in the UK. So if I'm not here next year, that might be where I am. And the upcoming elections in both the US and the UK are also causing much concern and uncertainty. We also have ongoing strike action that impacts daily life in the UK and Europe, in particular train and air strikes, which make for a difficult business life. In fact, we actually got an alert during yesterday's meetings that the German Rail and Lufthansa have announced a 36-hour strike this week, which is going to impact those attendees at ITB. So if you've got any colleagues over there, you might want to give them a heads up. However, having said all that gloom, the consumer sentiment is still very high and very positive. The appetite to travel remains high despite all of this. 50% of Brits are sacrificing other items to afford a holiday, according to a 2023 Amex study. It's a US election year, and historically that slows travel. But what we've been hearing from our partners is that the lowering of flight prices is converting those fence sitters. And although at the start of last year, the US passports were issuance for the passports was taking about 3 months, this is now down to about 4 to 6 weeks. So there's lots of enablers for travel. Booking trends. Across all of our Western markets, we're seeing that return to the traditional travel times and much longer booking lead times. US conversion rates from inquiry to booking are positively sitting at around 50%. And Trailfinders in the UK has said that they're achieving an Australian conversion rate of 62%, which is far exceeding our competitors. In France and Germany, we're seeing a trend to quality over quantity when traveling out of region. And in the UK, Brits are buying up, they're having add-ons in their itineraries and looking for better, higher quality hotel rooms. Our key competitors in the US are still very much Europe and also Japan. And in the UK and Europe, we're seeing travel to the US and Canada, and Thailand is proving very popular especially because of the low price deals that they're offering. However, Australia's desirability remains very high, but we need to make sure that all of us as Queensland continue to emphasize our points of difference to the other states and destinations. I'm pleased to report that the Queensland visitation recovery continues to strengthen from all the markets. This September 2023 data includes the US and Canada for North America, and Europe is comprised of Germany, Italy, Switzerland, and France. The UK achieved 87% visitor recovery, North America 72%, and Europe 73%. And I'm really pleased that OVE in Queensland has far exceeded previous levels, with North America at 112%, Germany at 104%, and the UK sitting at a whopping 131% OVE. Not depicted on this slide, but I thought it was positive data to report, is that for the UK, Queensland receives a 42% share of Australian holiday visitors. For US and Canada, that's a little lower, but only at 37%, and for Europe, it's sitting at 43%. So we really want to ensure that we maintain, if not increase this, with continued through-the-funnel consumer and trade messaging, including specialized interests, diverse regions, and unique selling points. According to the TRA forecast, the UK, and particularly the US, recovery will have a strong growth to 2028. Germany, France, and Italy are forecast to have a slower recovery and growth. However, Oxford Economics have reported that current recovery for Europe has been exceeding expectations for the year 2023. Aviation for the UK and Europe. Depending on how you measure, we're seeing a recovery sitting at around 77% into Queensland. We're working very closely with Qatar, with the Aviation Fund, and seeing strong forward loads on this route into Brisbane, and the same for Emirates. Singapore Airlines have recently announced the addition of London Gatwick as an airport they will be flying out of to Singapore. And more broadly, for Australia, but important given almost half of those flying into Australia from the UK and Europe will be visiting Queensland, there's the introduction of the Paris direct flight into Perth on Qantas, joining the existing London and Rome flights, direct services. And in interesting new developments with Turkish Airlines, they're soon going to be flying to Australia for the first time, even though the bit they don't mention is that it's a two-stop service via Europe, from Europe into Istanbul and Singapore. The addition of the Virgin Brisbane to Uluru route is a great addition for these markets to be able to package for that traditional first-timer itinerary. Cost and airline capacity does remain a major challenge. My flight out of Singapore didn't have a single flight available in any class. But we are seeing some low business and economy fares coming out, particularly out of Chinese airlines. For example, we were working with Trailfinders on a $5,000 business fare out of the UK, which will hopefully encourage the reduction from other airlines as well. We've heard lots about aviation from our US carriers, and it's very exciting to see those continued growth and adjustments. And we're working very closely with BEDA and Brisbane Airports and our aviation funding. As you've heard, we've started conversations with American Airlines and Delta with the announcement of their new routes. So some distribution insights from market. Commission levels. We find that inconsistency of distribution and consequently commission levels remains a bit of a challenge for our wholesalers and also for us when determining inclusions and features for trade partnerships. What we're talking about here is products deciding not to work with trade, dropping their commission levels to lower levels. Most of you, I'm sure, aren't doing this because you're in the room with us today, but it is something that we do here. So we hope that we all get on board if you want to play in the international space to work with distribution and offer correct commission levels. Trade-ready new product is of interest to our distributors. However, we are finding that group series are remaining a little hesitant to add new departures and itineraries. Staffing, I'm pleased to report that most KDPs are now fully resourced and we're finding knowledge levels are at a good level. France is probably the exception to this. They're still having staffing challenges and finding them they're quite understaffed. As a team, we've been out training in person and virtually, and this financial year to date, we've trained over 2,500 agents across the region. Many of our partners don't have physical offices in the UK, Germany, and the US, and with no plans to reopen. And in the UK and US, we're seeing the ongoing growth of independent contractors and home workers. We're working closely with Tourism Australia for base level education via the Aussie Specialist Programme. Aviation. So I previously talked about all the exciting developments and the return of routes, which is 100% great for Queensland and Australia. But what it does do is add complexity for our distributors to match the gateways with the best alliances to service their clients within Australia. The NDC, the new distribution capabilities, has disrupted how travel agents book air, with many airlines removing content, traditionally lower priced tickets without the bells and whistles, from the GDS, and encouraging bookings via their own platforms, which is making shopping for air much more time-consuming for distribution with multiple platforms to consult. high inquiries and bookings. The data showing that we had a booming traditional peaks of January, February, and many of our operators reporting those record sales for the start of this year. This slide isn't a list of operators in market, as we know you're all very familiar with the distribution landscape, but instead more some of the trends that we're seeing that Steph, Laura, and I are trying to capitalize and innovate with. Many of our distributors, particularly brands new to market, are using core product banks to contract. For example, Apple Leisure Group in the US use Expedia and Viator, Hopper and Flight Centre UK using hotel beds. And consumers are increasingly booking flights and hotels through OTAs, and then independently booking experiences and tours through the likes of Get Your Guide and Viator. It means that all of us need to be additionally aware where the business is being generated and how we can impact sales. All of Australia partnerships. With all the states and territories spending in our markets, and for Queensland, also our RTO partners, there's increased importance about avoiding duplication and investment and allowing only strategic overlap. Some large UK, European partners have moved to the requirement of an all-Australia partnership versus working with each state individually, for example, Trailfinders in the UK. Americas have been working in this one voice approach programming for consortia with Tourism Australia and the other states in order to achieve minimum buy-in requirements. Distribution evolution. Aligned with product banks, the American credit cards are continuing to use tech or aggregators to service their travel clients, which is a huge market, but largely unseen as bookings aren't linked to the brands themselves. Hopper, the exclusive travel provider for Capital One Bank in the US, launched their first travel sale in 2023. And TEQ was the first destination to partner, with Tourism Australia now following. Hopper have also partnered with Uber in the UK and are soon to become the exclusive travel partner for CommBank in Australia. Also in the credit card space, Chase acquired CX Loyalty, or Loyalty Travel, at the end of 2020, with 2023 data indicating a huge volume of business coming to Australia and Queensland from this channel, second only to Expedia for all Australia ticket sales. Oz Unlimited in Germany began trading as a new business with a strong digital and online focus, but at the end of 2023 also released their own print brochures, which shows the continued importance of printed materials in Europe. Steph has worked hard in the last year to translate and update our trade brochure and other materials into German, and we're using these extensively at trade events, including ITB this week. Meyers Weltreisen will be re-established as a boutique brand within Der Touristik in Germany, alongside Der Tour. And Intranova, the parent company of travel leaders, have branded the collective of luxury travel agencies, now under the heading of Global Travel Collective, or GTC, and they employ over 1,300 luxury leisure agents. And these advisors are still operating under their brands, such as Andrew Harper, the In the Know Experiences, Pro Travel, and they still maintain their partnerships with Signature or Virtuoso. In contrast to the UK and the US, the larger German operators such as FTI and Der Touristik aren't seeing a stronger recovery, but smaller, more boutique operators are continuing to perform well, for example, Travel Essence and Best of Travel Group. In France, Asia is taking bookings from Australia Tours, and Australia à la carte, the key player, and NAR is very much growing in importance. From a PR perspective, we've had a strong coverage across our markets, and thank you so much to all of you for all the support for both trade and media for Mills. A few of the highlights for the region. In Condé Nast Traveller, they included Brisbane as part of their Where to Go in 2024. We had a 6-page spread in the UK travel magazine Wanderlust, focusing on the Great Barrier Reef conservation initiatives in the southern Great Barrier Reef region. The Times UK included Brisbane as one of the top destinations to visit in 2024, and German Elle magazine featuring Brisbane, including Crystalbrook, and the Whitsundays and Lady Elliot Island. As with other markets, we have plenty of activities underway, including a multifaceted large programs with Singapore Airlines, United, Qatar, and Air Canada, together with some newer programs with hotel beds, charitable travel, and camper days. Capitalizing on major events, though, we're working in the UK on a large program to encourage British and Irish Lions rugby fans to spend their holiday time in Queensland when they come on tour in 2025. It is estimated that visitation will be in excess of 30,000 British visitors for the iconic tournament. Apologies for that. And having attended 3 Lions tours myself, and I can attest to the great vibe and the dollars that will be spent around the state, and also an army of Queensland ambassadors that will be created post-event.